Did you miss the bottom on getting a great price for a freehold detached in GTA this year? Stay tuned as I break down exactly what happened in the detached market for this end of the year recap in 2020. Stay tuned. Promise you, it'll be worth it. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. So glad you could join me here today. Every week on Prime Properties TV, we take a closer look at the Toronto real estate topics and updates that matter the most to you. And in this episode, as we're approaching the end of the year, I'm going to recap what exactly happened to the freehold market, specifically the detaches, and whether we missed the bottom and it's past us. Now, if you love real estate content like this, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the Prime Property channel for more awesome real estate content just like this. The bottom of the screen on the right-hand side is exactly where you can subscribe. Oh, and by the way, I'm doing the exact same thing next week for the condo market, specifically in Toronto. So definitely stay tuned and turn on the notification bell to be the first to watch that episode. So with the freehold detached market being so hot right now, like stupid hot, almost 2017 style kind of hot, I had to ask myself the question, did we miss the so-called proverbial bottom as the market is recovering like a rocket ship post-lockdown? So to do that, I obviously got really nerdy and pulled up my ginormous spreadsheet for Toronto real estate numbers. Like literally, it's a ginormous spreadsheet of data for the last 20 years. And this is how I'm going to present the data to you. I'm going to show you in a coherent way of what happened in the market since 2017, because there were major events that have caused dramatic changes and fluctuations. And then I'm going to recap 20. The reason I'm doing this is because we need context from the past to understand what 2020 means, because there's so much weird data, and to predict and see what 2021 is going to be like. And of course, I'm going to split this up into 416 and the 905 as they're totally different markets. So fasten your seatbelts. I know this is going to be a long one, but a good one. So first chart I'm going to show you on the right here is the average price of a detached in the 416 from 2017 all the way to 2020. It's right here. So you can see that at the start of 2017, there was a massive, massive jump in price. This was the so-called super, super hot first 3 months of 2017. So when I talk about 2017 being hot, it's that. This is where there was literally no supply and people were just sending in bully offers without seeing the house. Yeah, it was that crazy back then. Then you can see this massive price drop in pricing due to the Wynne government coming out with the foreign buyer tax. This was a huge, huge dramatic drop in prices, and we really haven't recovered from then since. Now, one of the things I will note is that detaches are very, very seasonal, especially in the 416, because people want to buy houses in the spring, not in the winter. So these little mini zigs up and down, I would not look into them too much because of the seasonality, but I want to use these numbers because it's the purest data that is available without TREB kind of changing of the home price index or seasonality that they publish. So this is why you can see dips in certain parts in January, August, and December months, because I'm building it all in here, here, and here. Now, as we progress through the pricing timeline on this chart, you can see that the trend line has been trending up, but ever so slightly with a tiny little bit. But you did notice in November 2019 and December 2019, there was no dip at all. And this was exactly what I thought the inflection point was going to be for the detaches as the condo prices were being pushed to the upper limits. The condo average price at that point in the end of 2019 was over $700,000 compared to the 416. Now, this meant that the difference between a condo and a fully detached house in the 416 was only $700,000 or twice the price. So this drove the market to the detaches. As you can see, that's why there's a spike in price in January, because there was more perceived value in the detached than the condo as it's only twice the price. This was the smallest gap ever, right? I talked about this before. So now this takes us to 2020 and you can see the boom, massive price drop, pandemic. Surprisingly, when we look at the pandemic, the massive price drop was less volatile than the 2017 price drop. And it recovered quite quickly, literally like 2 or 3 months and bam, right here. So let me ask you a question. You can see on this giant chart and you leave your answer in the comment section below. There's 3 clear bottom points in the 460 detached when it comes to pricing. Why do you think that is? Pause the video now and put your answers and your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's see if you come to the same conclusion I do, because I know there's a lot of smart people watching out there. I know because I get a lot of comments and emails. So I'd be interested to see what everyone's thought is. So pause the video right now and put your answers in below. So this is my conclusion that I drew. In every single bottom on the chart, we got less than 400-ish sales. The averaging it of all the seasons together, we should still be around 800 or 789 to be more specific. This meant that the number of transactions in those 3 bottom points were very low, and it's the lowest amount of sales we had compared to inventory. And in those 3 points, you can equate it to maybe bad timing, more inventory demand, maybe more selection from the buyers is why prices all came down. Specifically in April 2020, it was basically the lowest sale total ever in a month of 313. And keep in mind, April is supposed to be a spring market month as well. Interesting, right? So now they have a little bit of history and context as to what the pricing has looked like in the last few years. Let's zoom in specifically on the 2020. You can see that the spikes are less as aggressive as you remove the other data points in the graph. And the drop is still there when the pandemic came, but you can see from May until July, the so-called pent-up demand was driving the prices up and up and up. We actually didn't have enough supply at that point, and we absorbed all the previous supply we had, and then summer came along and we finally got a little bit of supply and it kind of leveled up. Now, this is important to remember because this is what's going to give us an indication of what's going to happen with pricing. If you've been following me enough, you'll know that the months of inventory number I follow very closely, to me, is the most important number and the most important data point because it's the leading indicator of where prices are going to go. Average price means we got there already. Meaning if inventory is low, prices are likely to increase. If inventory is high, prices are likely to decrease, right? Inverse. So I'm going to guide you through this year's 416 detached months of inventory. You can see over here that we've been hovering around 2 months of inventory basically all year after the pandemic in May and June. And just in case you're new to the channel, sub 4 is a seller's market, over 6 is a buyer's market. So you can see we've been a sub 2 in the seller's market for a very long time in 2020. Now, I'm going to show you the months of inventory to the average price. I'm going to compare the two graphs right here. You see, do the graphs look like they're just flipped around version of one another? This is to basically show you that the lack of supply drives prices up and too much supply drives prices down. This year was a great indication of it because we had spikes of up and down because of the pandemic. You can see we had a ton of supply and less demand in the month of April and prices came down. But you can see the exact opposite on the latter half of the year when prices went up when inventory went down. Right? Interesting. So it's a fairly obvious conclusion you can draw from this, but seeing it in a visual way hopefully gives you a better idea of what's happening and what could happen. Now, before I give you my final conclusion, let me show you one last chart. This chart right here shows you the change in price in the last 3 years when you go month to month. Trev never talks about these numbers, media never talks about it, but I monitor it because when massive things change, we have to look at month to month. You can see that seasonality, we're almost the same now and back to normal as the last 3 years from 2017 to 2019, with a few minor hiccups I was talking about earlier, foreign buyer tax and stress test. You can see that in the months of February and September, prices spike up almost 10% from the previous month of January or August. This is the rationale behind it, right? The demand for detaches fluctuates a little bit each month, even in the slower months, being higher in spring and fall, but listings fluctuate so much more, meaning the amount of people that don't list their homes until spring market, which is after March break, or fall market, which is after Labor Day, but the demand remains the same. And the months before it, the demand, like I was saying, it remains the same, and that's why the inventory is so low, which drives prices up because people are bidding for it. And when the demand is high in January and everyone's New Year's resolution is to buy a house, or maybe in the fall time before kids go to school, this causes a lot of bidding wars and prices spike up. So the next month when people list their homes and sellers are looking at the last month's data, they're like, oh, these guys got that much. I want that much plus more. We're in spring market. So you can see that they are expecting more money for the exact same house. And here is that literal chart that I'm talking about, where month over month from January to February change in the last 10 years. 10 years. All green, prices always go up from January to February. Interesting, right? Now, here's me imposing the 2020 price change on the same chart. And you can see that the pandemic has clearly messed with the norm. But you can see that the blue line has averaged and stabilized towards the end without too many fluctuations like the previous years. So let's draw a conclusion. With demand continuing to stay high, inventory staying low, as we're heading into February, which is a month where prices go up, the changes of price are likely to go up. Now, I'm publishing this video the week before Christmas in 2020. The last reported average price for the detached in 416 was 1.47 mil. What do you think is going to happen next in the next 3 months, knowing that the inventory has remained low for the last 6 months, like sub 1.5, and that a February price increase is right around the corner with the demand staying so high, right? I'll let you draw that conclusion yourself, but I think it's a fairly obvious one. So that's the 416 detached market. That probably went on longer than I thought. So, if you need to take a break, take a water or whatever, because I'm going to take a little water break, and then let's move on to 905. So like the 416, let's look at the history in the last 4 years of the average price. You can see in this chart, similar to the 4 and 6, there was a massive run up in price in the first 4 months of 2017, right before the foreign buyer tax. Now, the implications of the foreign buyer tax was so much more drastic because the non-resident speculators were buying houses in the 905, such as Markham, Richmond Hill, Vaughan. And that's why you see the average price in 905 go from 1 mil the year before to 1.25 mil, and then right back down to 900 a few months after. It stayed that way for a very, very long time until the end of 2019, like the 416, like I was saying earlier, because the condo prices went up so much more that it looked like there was more value in the detaches. You can see that there was an inflection point right there, similar to the 4 and 6, that prices were about to run up. Coincidentally, also in February, right? Follow me so far? Then bam, pandemic, massive price drop, not as bad as the foreign buyer tax, but months later, right back up. So if you zoom into the average price in 2020, as we look closer, you can see that we broke the average 1 mil price in February 2020 already before the pandemic, which was bringing us almost back up to the peaks of 2017. Then the pandemic came. What's different here from the 416, that the price run up the months after the pandemic, meaning like after the pent up demand in summer, it didn't level off. It didn't level off in the fall. We're actually not stopping the average price increase in the 905 right now. And this is propelled by the reason that people want more space and they've left the city, the 416. This means the demand in the 905 is even stronger for detached than the 416, and there's even less supply. Now, if you're looking back at the average price in the last 4 years, you can see that there's 2 peaks, one in 2017 and one in 2020. And they're very similar. In 2017, the average price was 1.24 mil, and it's exactly the same right now as I speak. Well, not literally, but off by 200 bucks. So before I show you the months of inventory, let's look at the regular trends of price change month to month. You can see in this chart that the 905 is still subjected to seasonality changes like the 416, but not as drastic. And because the crazy swings in 2017 were in this chart, I'm going to remove the 2017, and you can see that it's kind of back to normal, similar to what 4 and 6 looks like. Now, if we look at the entire chart with 2020 built in, you can see that there's a super exaggerated 2017 chart purposely put in there, and there's a trend line, and you can see that the February spike that happened in 2020, remember, pre-pandemic, is the second highest increase in the last 4 years. Also February. This is because what I told you earlier. Pre-pandemic, the 905 detachers were making a comeback anyways. This is why we got so much pent-up demand post-pandemic, because the regular demand was coming back when everyone wanted to flee the city, and you add the two of them, lots of demand. This is why you see in May and June of 2020, the prices spiked as much as they did, similar to like in the months of 2017, the super insane ones, right? So now it's kind of leveled off like it normally does, meaning that we should be back to normal with the normal fluctuation. So where are we going to be looking when prices come around in February 2021? If you think prices are going to go up and setting a new precedent, I agree with you. Here's the data that'll cement it for you. The current data for the 905 detached months of inventory in 2020 is right here. We are literally trending down in November and December instead of up. I told you earlier, sellers stop listing their properties in the winter months, but buyers continue looking. One of the only ever December months where we got less months of inventory, smaller than 1, I mean lower than the number 1 of months of inventory, it meant that there was more sales than there were listings, was December 2016. And you know what happened the first 4 months of 2017? Boom, prices went up. See, I'm not going to say that's going to happen again, but there's a eerily similar amount of similarity that happened 4 years ago. Now, I don't think that we're going to have a crazy ramp up in price of like 30%, give or take, in the next 4 months. But I do think we may get at least 10% increase, which may sound crazy to you from January to February. But if you average out the January to February price increase in the last 10 years in the chart I showed you, it's 7.13%, right? Of course, this is strictly the 905 detached market. The data is all here for you. I presented it. The findings may surprise you, but these are the things I always knew, but I needed a way to present it to you in a coherent manner. So the question I posed to you earlier, did we miss the bottom of the detached market when the pandemic came? Probably. Are we going to see a price increase in 2021? Probably. Granted, a lot of things can change, from government policies, monetary policies, buyer behavior, the vaccine being rolled out, because, we're still in a crazy world right now. But February 2021 is 2 months away as I'm shooting this right now. So let's see what happens next. See, I know I'm looking to buy something during the holidays. And to be clear, not a gift, a real estate. property, like a piece of property. I love putting in offers during Christmas, so I'll be doing that. Whether you want to, up to you. Hopefully you found this helpful. I know there's a lot of information to digest. It's because it was, because I got really nerdy in this end of the year recap. So if you want to see more breakdowns of some of this, specifically for the condo ones, make sure to subscribe to the Prime Property channel, because I'll be getting that one ready shortly after this. So if you're looking to make a move in the real estate market after seeing all the data I just presented to you today, you can book a call with me to talk strategy, to see what makes the most sense. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Link is on the screens right here. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya. Now that you're done watching this one, how about this one? Oh, you know what? This one's good too. Ooh, this one's really good. You know what? Just watch them both.